Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Chapter 4. This will be 417. This will be the sweetback of the wings. This is for lateral stability. Sweetback is an addition to the dihedral that increases the lift created when the wing drops from the level position. A sweepback wing is one in which the leading edge slopes backward. When a disturbance causes an aircraft with sweetback to slip or drop a wing, the lower wing presents its leading edge at an angle that is perpendicular to the relative airflow. As a result, the low wing acquires more lift, rises, and the aircraft is restored to original flight attitude. Sweetback also contributes to directional stability. When turbulence or rudder application causes the aircraft to yaw to one side, the right wing presents a longer leading edge perpendicular to the relative airflow. The airspeed of the right wing increases and it acquires more drag than the left wing. The additional drag on the right wing pulls it back, turning the aircraft back to its original path. The keel effect and weight distribution. An aircraft always has the tendency to turn the longitudinal axis of the aircraft into a relative wind. The weather vane tendency is similar to the keel of a ship and exerts a steadying influence on the aircraft laterally about the longitudinal axis. When the aircraft is disturbed and one wing dips, the fuselage weight acts like a pendulum, returning the airplane to its original attitude. Laterally stable aircraft are constructed so that the greater portion of the keel area is above and behind the center of gravity, figure 4-26. Thus, when an aircraft slips to one side, the combination of the aircraft's weight and the pressure of the airflow against the upper portion of the keel area, both acting about the center of gravity, tends to roll the aircraft back to wings level flight. Keel. An aircraft always has a tendency to turn to the longitudinal axis of the aircraft into the relative wind. This relative wind vane tendency is similar to the keel of a ship and exerts a steadying influence about the. So that was some more pictures. All right. So we'll go into vertical stability, yawing. Stability about the aircraft's vertical axis, the sideways moment, is called yawing or directional stability. Yawing or directional stability is the most easily achieved stability in aircraft design. The area of the vertical fin and the sides of the fuselage aft the center of gravity are the prime contributors with the which make the aircraft act like the well-known weather vane or arrow, pointing its nose into the relative wind. In examining a weather vane, it can be seen that if exactly the same amount of surface were exposed to the wind in front of the pivot point as behind, the forces fore and aft would be in balance and little or no directional movement would result. Consequently, it is necessary to have a greater surface aft of the pivot point than forward of it. Similarly, the aircraft designer must ensure positive directional stability by making the side surface greater aft than ahead of the center of gravity. To provide additional positive stability to that provided by the fuselage, a vertical fin is added. The fin acts similar to the feather on an arrow in maintaining straight flight. Like the weather vane and the arrow, the farther aft this fin is placed and the larger its side, the greater the aircraft's directional stability. If an aircraft is flying in a straight line and a sideways gust of air gives the aircraft a slight rotation about its vertical axis, i.e. to the right, the motion is retarded and stopped by the fin because while the aircraft is rotating to the right, the air is striking the left side of the fin at an angle. This causes pressure on the left side of the fin, which resists the turning motion and slows down the aircraft's yaw. In doing so, it acts somewhat like the weather vane by turning the aircraft into the relative wind. The initial change in direction of the aircraft's flight path is generally slightly behind its change of heading. Therefore, after a slight yawing of the aircraft to the right, there is a brief moment when the aircraft is still moving along its original path, but its longitudinal axis is pointed slightly to the right. The aircraft is then momentarily skidding sideways, and during that moment, since it is assumed that although the yawing motion has stopped, the excess pressure on the left side of the fin still persists, there is necessarily a tendency for the aircraft to be turned partially back to the left. That is, there is a momentary restoring tendency caused by the fin. This restoring tendency is relatively slow in developing and ceases when the aircraft stops skidding. When it ceases, the aircraft is flying in a direction slightly different from the original direction. In other words, it will not return of its own accord to the original heading. The pilot must reestablish the initial heading. A minor improvement of directional stability may be obtained through Sweetback. Sweetback is incorporated in the design of the wing primarily to delay the onset of compressibility during high-speed flight. In lighter and slower aircraft, Sweetback aids in locating the center of pressure in the correct relationship with the center of gravity. A longitudinally stable aircraft is built with the center of pressure aft of the center of gravity. Because of structural reasons, aircraft designers sometimes cannot attach the wings to the fuselage at the exact desired point. If they had to mount the wings too far forward and at the right angles to the fuselage, the center of pressure would not be far enough to the rear to result in the desired amount of longitudinal stability. By building Sweetback into the wings, however, the designers can move the center of pressure towards the rear. The amount of Sweetback and the position of the wings then place the center of pressure in the correct location. The contributions of the wing to static directional stability is usually small. The sweep wing provides a stable contribution depending on the amount of Sweetback, but the contribution is relatively small when compared with other components. Alright, so we're looking here, fuselage and fin for vertical stability. So starting to yaw. Alright, so we're going to hold off right there. That's on our 418. 418, and what do we call that? Call that the Sweetback, the keel. Nope, that was vertical stability, yawing. Alright, yawing. See ya.